It's warm. England is too warm. Can someone please call it that? Where's the rain? I dislike this. Hello everyone and welcome. It is me, Briony Smith, surviving in the forbidden library / recording a VR chat / dying of heat. Yeah. How's everyone? Hello. Hello to me, hello Maxwell, hello Exno, hello Boris, hello Scars of Iron, hello Nova Size Phantom, hello Jet Excalibur, welcome. Yes, you guys have new emotes. Due to the dump of 200 members, you guys got new emotes. It earned me some new emote spots. So you got some of the ones that Discord has that YouTube did not, and now you do. Just wanted to say hi. May or may not dump a lot of lore about Confucianism later. The only thing I know about Confucianism is that Boris is a member. 2 years. Yep. 2 years preggers. It's crazy. After 7 years of watching VTubers, there are only 3 whose streams I drop everything to watch. I am a Lenore, Liddell, and moi. 2 of whom are streaming at the same time. Oh my gosh. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to stream at the same time as your other Oshis. You just have to have one in one monitor and one in... Maybe one on your phone, one on your PC. I'm sure you can figure it out. Hello, Noko-chan! Salutations! Noko-chan! It's gonna get very hot this week in California, sadly. I wish cooler weather. I wish you cooler weather only came. I wish you survived the best in California in your AC. Your buildings with AC. I've been icing all my teas at work. We have an ice machine at work, and now I've been making tea and I'm making it iced. It's the only way I can survive is to ice my tea. It is fucking warm, Maxwell. All Europe is melting. Correct. We're dying. We're all dying. The universal, it's fucking warm. I have no AC at home, so it's gonna be rough. Oh yeah, you can suffer like us Brits then. It's 73, 78, what? That's terrifying, Boris. I keep saying that now is like summer weather. It's gonna be like, I don't know, 29, 30 tomorrow for us, apparently. And I'm like, that's holiday weather. What do you want about? That's the weather I go on holiday to find. But no, it's here. Sorry, I really needed to vent about this. We all needed a little bit of a complaint about the weather, let's face it. We all definitely do. Is it really stream about it? I've eaten like 20 ice creams the past few days. Yes. I just got some from my mother because she didn't like those particular ice creams, so I was like, yes, I will have them. And I made a wee mistake of having a milkshake before the stream. Which sounds fine, but the worst thing to do if you're gonna be talking a lot is to have a lot of dairy. But it's fine. We have hydration, which I expect I'm gonna have to refill my hydration at some point during the stream because I'm gonna have to drink a lot more. We stay hydrated. We do not dehydrate. Actually gonna fetch number 21. Do it. Hydration! Oh no, I gotta quickly before hydration. We gotta get rid of that advertising, but stop hydrating! There you go. You can hydrate again. I banned them. It's all good. No, I just deleted the message. Fuck. I need to show it. So no, I forgot that I pressed delete, not ban. I blame you and your hydrations, Max. But by the way, it's fine. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can pretend you're in the sunny beaches of Spain while staring at the bleak, cold-dusted landscape of Bristol. Yes, you probably could. And it's also weird because I was looking at the time and I'm like, it's 5 o'clock. It's still so sunny. It's 20 to 8. And it's still so sunny! Anyway, enough about being incredibly confused in general. About the weather? Yes. About the light? Yes. About life? Yes. But we do our best. We're gonna read Don Quixote, in which Don Quixote and Sancho got beat up by a load of people. If I remember correctly, what happened was we went to a funeral of a dude who basically died of heartbreak because the pretty girl said no. And the pretty girl turned up to the funeral and said, "It's not my fault. I didn't lead him on. He's the one who thought I should love him just because I loved him. Just because he loved me. And that's not fair. I'm gonna go live in the woods now. Goodbye." And she did. What a queen. Then Don Quixote was like, "Yes, we should totally respect the woman." And then proceeded to follow her into the woods. Yay! Failed to find her, luckily, so she gets to live without this annoyance in her life. And then Don Quixote and Sancho chilled out, and Rocinante went for a little wander and found some pretty lady horses. If only we could all live in the woods. I know, right? What was it I was watching that was like, this is the dream, this is the real dream? What was it? I can't remember. But there was something I was watching recently where I was like, this is what everyone wants to do. I don't know, it'll come back to me. Don Quixote says, "Drink your respect woman juice today," and then immediately did not respect woman and wanted to go see the woman again. He's at least putting up airs in front of people. Yes. So Rocinante walked off, found some lady horses, and then but the lady horses belonged to some dudes, and then the dudes beat up Rocinante for being horny, and then Don Quixote and Sancho tried to fight them off, but you know, there was lots of them and there were two of them, and they got beaten up, and now they're on the floor, if I remember correctly. Did I not highlight where we were though? Yeah, so that's what we think it was. I didn't highlight where we were. Past me. Failure. Failure run past me. Oh well. No, Don Quixote learns nothing, does nothing, continues to be a pest and promise Sancho the world. And Sancho continues to be an idiot and believe. Oh, I did have a Limbus thought though. What if Dante is Sancho? Is Dante Sancho? That's my Limbus Company prediction. Dante is Sancho. Okay, now I have that out of the way. Let's go from... Yes, we read these big paragraphs. I know that, because I remember struggling through them. I'm gonna go. "And yet thine, Sancho," replied Don Quixote, "ought to be used to such squalls, but mine, reared in soft cloth and fine linen, is plain they must feel more keenly the pain of this mishap. And if it were not that I imagine, why do I say imagine? Know that a certainty that all these annoyances are very necessary accompaniments of the calling of arms. I would lay me down here to die of pure vexation." To this, the squire replied, "Señor, these mishaps are as these mishaps are what one reaps as chivalry. Tell me if they happen very often, or if they have their own fixed times for coming to pass, because it seems to me that after 2 harvests we shall be no good for the third, unless God in his infinite mercy helps us. No, friend Sancho, replied Don Quixote, that the life of knight-errant is subject to 1,000 dangers and reverses, and reverers, and neither none nor less is it, when immediate possibility for knight-errant to become kings and emperors, as experience has shown in the case of many different knights, with whose histories I am thoroughly acquainted. I could tell thee now, if the pain would let me, of some who simply by might of arm have risen to the high stations I have mentioned, and those same both before and after experienced divers misfortunes and miseries. For the valiant Abbess of Gaul found himself in the power of his mortal enemy Callias, the magician, who it is positively asserted, holding him captive, gave him more than 200 lashes with the reins of his horse, while tied to one of the pillars of a court. And moreover, there is a certain recondite author of no small authority, who says the knight of Phoebus, being caught in a certain pitfall which opened under his feet in a certain castle, on falling found himself bound hand and foot in a deep pit underground, where they administered to him one of those things they call cyclosters, of sand and snow water, that well nigh finished him, and if he had not been succoured in that sore extremity by a sage, a great friend of his, it would have gone very hard with the poor knight. So I may well suffer in company with such worthy folk, for greater with the indignities which they had to suffer than those which we suffer. For I would have thee know, Sancho, that wounds caused by any instruments which happen by chance to be in hand inflict no indignity, and this is laid down in the law of the duel in express words. If, for instance, the clobberer strikes with the last which he has in his hand, though it may in fact be a piece of wood, it cannot be said for that reason that he whom he struck with it has to be cudgelled. I say this lest thou shouldst imagine that because we have been drubbed in this affray we have therefore suffered any indignity, for the arms those men carried with which they pounded us were nothing more than their stakes, and not one of them, so far as I can remember, carried rapier, sword, or dagger. I told my dad I was reading this tonight. Because obviously it is Papa's Day, it's Father's Day. So I went to go see my dad. And he was very impressed. I was like, really? Don Quixote? I was like, yeah. That's pretty hard, isn't it? I was like, yeah, it's been really hard. So many Spanish words. Google Translate's helped. They gave me no time to see that much, answered Sancho. For hardly had I laid my hand on my... Oh yeah, I keep doing Don Quixote's voice when we're Sancho. They gave me no time to see that much, answered Sancho, for hardly I laid hand on my tionza when they signed the cross on my shoulders with their sticks in such a style that they took the sight out of my eyes and the strength out of my feet, stretching me where I now lie, and where thinking of whether all those stake strokes were an indignity or not gives me no uneasiness, which the pain of the blows does, for they will remain as deeply impressed on my memory as on my shoulder. For all that, let me tell thee, brother Panzer, said Don Quixote, that there is no recollection which time does not put an end to, no pain which death does not remove. And what greater misfortune can there be? Replied Panzer. That the one that awaits me for time to put an end to it and death to remove it. If our mishap were one of those that are cured with a couple of plasters, it would not be so bad. But I'm beginning to think that all the plasters in an hospital almost won't be enough to put us right. No more than that. No more of that. Pluck strength out of weakness, Sancho, as I mean to do, returned Don Quixote, and let us see how Rocinante is, for it seems to me that not the least share of this mishap has fallen to the lot of the poor beast. There is a wonderful idea in that, replied Sancho, since he is a knight-errant too, that what I wonder is that my beast should have come off scot-free when we come out scotched. I'm laying a bit of farmer or a bit of Yorkshire on Sancho best I can. And then Don Quixote suddenly becomes a little more Queen's British indeed. That's how I'm doing. Fortune always leaves a door open in adversity in order to bring relief to it, said Don Quixote. I say so because this little beast may now supply the want of Rocinante, carrying me here to some castle where I may be cured of my wounds, and moreover I shall not hold it any dishonour to be so mounted, for I remember having read how the good old Silenus, the tutor and instructor of the gay god of laughter, when he entered the city of the 100 gates, went very contentedly mounted on a handsome arse. The class divide in Britain demonstrated by a feature. Correct. By accent, yes. I mean, that is the class divide of these two as well. Don Quixote was a rich noble, and Sancho's just a farm guy. It may be true that he went mounted, as your worship says, answered Sancho, but there is a great difference between going mounted and going slung like a sack of manure. God of laughter says happy bride. We love aha. Praise the laughter. Honkai players get it. Star Rail, yay. Anyway. To which Don Quixote replied, wounds received in battle confer honour instead of taking away. And so, friend Panzer, say no more. But as I told thee before, get up as well as thou canst, and put me on top of thy beast in whatever fashion pleases thee best. And let us go hence ere night come on and surprise us in these wilds. And yet, I have heard your worship say, observed Panzer, that it is very meet for knight-errants to sleep in wastes and deserts, and that they esteem it very good fortune. That is, said Don Quixote, when they cannot help it, or when they are in love. And so true is it that there have been knights who have remained 2 years on rocks, in sunshine and shade, and in all inclemencies of heaven, without their ladies knowing anything of it. And one of these was Amadis, when under the name of Beltenebros he took up his abode on the Penepobre, like Andre Porbe. I know not, for it was 8 years or 8 months, for I am not very sure of the reckoning. At any rate, he stayed there doing penance, for I know not what pique the Princess Oriana had against him. But no more of this now, Sancho, and make haste before a mishap like Rocinante's befalls the ass. Sorry, the arse. If I'm going for the British English, we're saying that right. Oh, the very devil would be in it in that case, said Sancho, and letting off 30 oh and 60 sighs and 120 maledictions and exertions on whomsoever it was that had brought him there. He raised himself, stopping halfway, bent like a Turkish bow, without power to bring himself upright. But with all his pains he saddled his ass, who had gone astray somewhat. Yielding to the excessive license of the day, he next raised up Rocinante, as if for him he had possessed a tongue with complain with. Most assuredly neither Sancho nor his master would have been behind him. Oh, lordy. To be brief, Sancho fixed Don Quixote on the ass and secured Rocinante with a leading rein, and taking the ass by the halter, he proceeded more or less in the direction in which seemed to him the high road might be, and, as chance was conducting their affairs for them from good to better, he had not gone a short league when the road came in sight, and on it he perceived an inn, which, to his annoyance, and to the delight of Don Quixote, must needs be a castle. Sancho insisted that it was an inn, and his master that it was not one, but a castle. The dispute lasted so long that before the point was settled, they had time to reach it, and into it Sancho entered with all his team without any further controversy. Absolutely, Sancho's got a huge ass. See? See how huge it is? I love how spindly Don Quixote is. He's like a fucking Enderman or something. He's so spindly. Chapter 16 of what happened to the indigenous gentleman in the inn, which he took to be a castle. Why is Sancho flying? Now this is a very interesting bit. Sorry, big yawn. Look at this. A lot of interesting, like a fallen scarecrow. You do. We're getting a lot of images of Sancho's ass. This is the second one in a row. Sancho's the fan service character. Did you know? He got that chunky booty. Sancho's cake. Looks like a fun weekend in Vegas. The innkeeper, seeing Don Quixote slung across the ass, asked Sancho what was amiss with him. Sancho answered that it was nothing, only that he had fallen down from a rock and had his ribs a little bruised. The innkeeper had a wife whose disposition was not such as those of her calling commonly have, for she was by nature kind-hearted, and felt for the suffering of her neighbours. So she at once set about tending Don Quixote, and made her young daughter, a very comely girl, help her in taking care of her guest. There was besides in the inn as servant an Austrian lass with a broad face, flat poll and snub nose, behind one eye, and not very sound in the other. Blind in one eye and not very sound in the other. Vegas would love Don Quixote. Don Quixote wouldn't even be weird in Vegas. I feel like people would just be like, oh, it's a guy. It's a LARPer. Also, Don Quixote could call places castle and be absolutely fucking correct. The elegance of her shape, to be sure, made up for all her defects. She did not measure 7 palms from head to foot, and her shoulders, which overweighted her somewhat, made her contemplate the ground more than she liked. This graceful lass then helped the young girl, and the two made up a very bad bed for Don Quixote in a garret that showed evident signs of having formerly served for many years as a straw loft, in which there was also quartered a carrier whose bed was placed a little beyond our Don Quixote's, and though only made of the pack saddles and cloths of his mules, had much the advantage of it, as Don Quixote is considered simply of 4 rough boards on 2 very even trestles, a mattress that for thinness might have passed for a quilt, full of pellets, which were they not seen through the rents of the wood, would be the touch have seemed pebbles in hardness. 2 sheets made buckler leather, and a coverlet of threads, of which anyone that chose might have counted without missing one in the reckoning. On this accursed bed Don Quixote stretched himself, and the hostess and her daughter soon covered him with plasters from top to toe, while Maritones, for that was the name of the Austrian, held the light for them, and while plastering him, the hostess, observing how full of wheals Don Quixote was in some places, remarked that this had more the look of blows than a fall. It was not blows, Sancho said, but that the rock had many points and projections, and that each of them had left its mark. Pray, Signora, he added, manage to save some tow, and there will be no want of someone to use it, for my loins, too, are rather sore. Then you must have fallen too, said the hostess. I ain't not fall, said Sancho Panza, but from the shock I got seeing me master fall, my body aches so that I feel as if I had 1,000 thwacks. And that may well be, said the young girl, for it has many a time happened to me to dream I was falling down from a tower and never coming to the ground, and when I awoke from the dream to find myself as weak and shaken as if I had really fallen. Vegas loves a drunk, that's the problem. Don Quixote's sober as fuck. He's just delulu. One second. Go. Oh. There is a point, Signora, replied Sancho Panza, that without dreaming at all, but being more awake than I am now, find myself with scarcely less wheels than my master Don Quixote. How is the gentleman called? Asked Maritornes, the Austrian. I love old books whenever they have, like, a foreign character. We must keep pointing out that they are not from this country, constantly. Or if they have darker skin, we must point this out constantly. Oh, lordy. Don Quixote of La Mancha, replied Sancho Panza, as he is a knight adventurer and one of the best and stoutest that I've ever seen in the world this long time past. What is a knight adventurer? Said the lass. Are you so new in the world as to not know? Asked Sancho Panza. Well, then, You must know, sister, that knight adventure is a thing that in 2 words is seen dropped, and an emperor that is today the most miserable and needy being in the old world, and tomorrow will have 2 or 3 crowns of kingdoms to give to his squire. Is that how Sancho sees it? Is that how Sancho sees it? Then how is it, asked the hostess, that belonging to so good a master as this, you have not, to judge by appearances, even so much as a country? It is too soon yet, answered Sancho, for we have only been a month going in quest of adventures, and so far we have met with nothing that can be called one. For it will happen that when one thing is looked for, another thing is found. However, my master Don Quixote gets well of this wound or fall, and I am left none the worse for it. I would not change my hopes for the best title in Spain. To all this conversation, Don Quixote was listening very attentively, and sitting up in bed as well as he could, and taking the hostess by the hand, he said to her, "Believe me, fair lady, you may call yourself fortunate in having in this castle of yours sheltered my person, which is such that if I do not myself praise it, it is because of what is commonly said, that self-praise debaseth. But my squire will inform you who I am. I only tell you that I shall preserve for ever inscribed on my memory the service you have rendered me in order to tender you my gratitude while life shall last me, and would to heaven love held me not so enthralled and subject to its laws, and to the eyes of that fair ingrate whom I name between my teeth, but that those of this lovely damsel might be the masters of my liberty." Write a story of Briony as a cameo. Where every time she's mentioned is written as Bridie Rose Smith, the British lady visiting under a tourist visa, says, yes, that is exactly what it would be like. For a modern one. For a modern version of that. The hostess, her daughter, the worthy Maritornes, listened in bewilderment to the words of the knight-errant, for they understood about as much of them as if he had been talking Greek, though they could perceive they were all meant for expressions of goodwill and blandishments. And not being accused to this kind of language, they stared at him and wondered to themselves, for he seemed to them a man of a different sort from those they were used to, and thanking him in pothouse phrase for his civility, they left him, while the Austrian gave her attention to Sancho, who needed it no less than his master. The carrier had made an arrangement with her for recreation that night, and she had given him her word that when the guests were quiet and the family were asleep, she would come in search of him and meet his wishes unreservedly. And it is said that this good lass that never made promises of the kind without fulfilling them, even though she made them in a forest and without any witness present, for she plumed herself greatly on being a lady, and held no disgrace to be in such an employment as servant in an inn, because, she said, misfortunes and ill luck had brought her to the position. The hard, narrow, wretched, rickety bed of Don Quixote stood first in the middle of the starlit stable, and close behind it Sancho made his, which merely consisted of a rush mat and a blanket that looked as if it was of threadbare canvas rather than of wool. Next to these two beds was that of the carrier, made up, as he had said, of the pack saddles and all the trappings of the two best mules he had, though there were 12 of them, sleek, plump, and in prime condition, for he was one of the rich carriers of Arevalo. According to the authority of his history, who particularly mentions this carrier because he knew him very well, and they had even say was in some degree a relation of his, besides which Cid Hamete Benegeli was a historian of great research and accuracy in all things, and is very evident, since he would not pass over in silence those that had been already mentioned, how trifling and insignificant they might be, an example that might be followed by those grave historians who relate transactions so curtly and briefly that we hardly get a taste of them, all the substance of the work being left in the inkstand from careless perverseness or ignorance. 1,000 blessings on the author of Tablante de Recamonte, and that of the other book in which the deeds of the Conde Tomialas are recounted, which, what minuteness they describe everything. I love the author gets sidetracked. Stretch, okay. Ugh. Stretched. Oh, now you made me yawn. Did you stretch on a yawn? Maybe. Welcome and thank you for the follow. I saw your follow ages ago, senior viewer. But I love the author getting distracted in this book and going like, but this and this wasn't important, but it was written down and I wanted to write it down. To proceed then, after having paid a visit to his team and given them their second feed, the carrier stretched himself on his pack saddles and lay waiting for his conscientious maritores. Sancho was by this time plastered and lain down, and though he strove to sleep, the pain of his ribs would not let him, while Don Quixote, with the pain of his... You got a yawn as well? Oh, heck yeah. 1 stretch, 2 yawns. 2 for the price of 1. And while Don Quixote, with the pain of his, had his eyes wide open as a hare's. What the fudge cake is this picture? Don Quixote is a nightmare creature in these. Look at this fella. I'm just gonna... I just want you to... This is a jump scare. Look at this shit. Okay, I'll hydrate. You can sit there and look at Don Quixote's face while I hydrate. He looks like he's melting! Hydrated. He does need hydration. This is Don Quixote. And what the fuck is going on here? He was considered beautiful for the time. Absolutely. I suppose our standards are different nowadays. To me, he looks like he needs a bit of lotion. He needs a bath. He needs a swim in a pool. Life before sunscreen. Looks like something out of Dark Souls with some lore that's horrifying implications about his condition. Yes! What is the Don Quixote Dark Souls lore? This is going to take ages to make small again. The consequences of my actions! How dare I want to show you the picture real close. Oh, wait, no. I gotta press the back button. Boop. There you go. The inn was all in silence, but in the whole of it, there was no light except that given by a lantern that hung burning in the middle of the gateway. This strange stillness in the thoughts, always present to our knight's mind, of the incidents described at every turn in the books that were the cause of his misfortune, conjured up to his imagination as extraordinary a delusion as can be conceived, which was that he fancied himself to have reached a famous castle. For, as has been said, all the inns he lodged in were castles to his eyes, and that the daughter of the innkeeper was daughter of the lord of the castle, and that she, won by his high breed bearing, had fallen in love with him, and had promised to come to his bed for a while that night, without the knowledge of her parents, and holding all this fancy that he had constructed as solid fact, he began to feel uneasy, and to consider the perilous risk which his virtue was about to encounter. And he resolved in his heart to commit no treason to his Lady Dulcina del Bossor, even though the Queen Guinevere herself and the Dame Quintanona should present themselves before him. Sorry. While he was taken up with vagaries, then the time and the hour, an unlucky one for him, arrived the Austrian to come, who, in her smock, with bare feet, and her hair gathered into a fustian coif, with noiseless and cautious step, entered the chamber where the three were quartered, in quest of the carrier. But scarcely had she gained the door when Don Quixote perceived her, and sitting up in his bed, in spite of his plasters and the pain in his ribs, he stretched out his arms to receive his beauteous damsel. The Austrian, who went all doubled up and in silence, with her hands before her, feeling for her lover, encountered the arms of Don Quixote, who grasped her tightly by the wrist, drawing her towards him, while she dared not utter a word, make her sit down on the bed. He then felt her smock, and although it was of sackcloth, it appeared to him to be of the finest and softest silk. On her wrists she wore some glass beads, but to him they had the sheen of precious orient pearls. Her hair, which, in some measurable resemblance a horse's mane, he rated as threads of the brightest gold of Araby, whose refulgence dimmed the sun himself. Her breath, which no doubt smelt of yesterday's stale salad, seemed to him to diffuse a sweet aromatic fragrance from her mouth, and in short, he drew her portrait in his imagination, with the same features and in the same style as that which he had seen in books of other princesses who, smitten by love, came with all the adornments that were here set down. To see the sorely wounded knight, and so great was the poor gentleman's blindness, that neither touch nor smell nor anything else about the good lass that would have made any but the carrier vomit were enough to undeceive him. On the contrary, he was persuaded he had the goddess of beauty in his arms, and holding her firmly in his grasp, he went to say in a low tender, "Would that I found myself lovely and exalted lady, in a position to repay such a favour as that which you, by the sight of your great beauty, have granted me. But fortune, which is never weary of persecuting the good, has chosen to place me upon this bed, where I lie so bruised and broken that though my inclination would gladly comply with yours, it is impossible. Besides this impossibility, another yet greater to be added, which is the faith that I have pledged to the peerless Dulcina del Toboso, sore lady of my most secret thoughts. And were it not that this stood in the way, I should not be so insensible a knight as to miss the happy opportunity which your great goodness has offered me. Don Quixote's reaction to any woman. Sees every woman as beautiful, but does not see every woman. Not feminist. Maritornes was fretting and sweating at finding herself held so fast by Don Quixote, and not understanding or heeding the words he addressed to her. She strove without speaking to free herself. The worthy carrier, whose unholy thoughts kept him awake, was aware of his doxy the moment she entered the door, and was listening attentively to all Don Quixote said, and jealous that the Austrian should have broken her word with him for another, drew nearer to Don Quixote's bed, and stood still to see what would come of this talk, which he could not understand. But when he perceived the wench struggling to get free, and Don Quixote striving to hold her, not relishing the joke, he had raised his arms and delivered such a terrible cuff on the lank jaws of the amorous knight that he bathed all his mouth in blood. And not content with this, he mounted on his ribs with his feet and trampled all over them at a pace rather smarter than a trot. The bed, which was somewhat crazy and not very firm on his feet, unable to support the additional weight of the carrier, came to the ground at the mighty crash of the innkeeper. At the mighty crash of this, the innkeeper woke, and at once concluded that it must be some brawl of Maritornes, because after calling loudly to her, he got no answer. With this suspicion, he got up, and lighting the lamp, hastened to the quarter where he had heard the disturbance. The wench, seeing that her master was coming, and knowing that his temper was terrible, frightened and panic-stricken, made for the bed of Sancho Panza, who still slept, and crouching upon it, made a ball of herself. Girl just wanted to hook up and get paid. I'm gonna go on a very quick BRB and also to refill my water. Has water. Can hydrate again. I was only near the end. And I was like, well, that's a good time to stop. Good time to stop. Could I cast Meteor Shower with book magic? I don't think I can. The book magic does allow me to survive and be able to freely move around the space room in the Forbidden Library. But I don't doubt that the Library Guardian or the Tea Fairies probably could cast Book Meteor. 100%. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, the innkeeper came in exclaiming, "Where art thou, strumpet? Of course, this is some of thy work." I feel like, I'm gonna just give a little Google of this word. Strumpet's just another word for a prostitute. That's okay. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a slur. A woman who has many casual sexual encounters or relationships. Or a female prostitute, a strumpet. Good to know. Today I learned. Of course, this is some of thy work. At this, Sancho awoke, and feeling this mass almost on top of him, fancied he had a nightmare, and began to distribute fisticuffs all round, of which a certain share fell upon Maritornes, who, irritated by the pain and flinging modestly aside, paid back so many in return to Sancho that she woke him up in spite of himself. He then, finding himself so handled by whom he knew not, raising himself up as well as he could, grappled with Maritornes, and he and she, between them, began the bitterest and drollest scrimmage in the world. Just look at all the things you learn from classical literature. Yeah! We have a whole new word for prostitute. The carrier, however, perceiving by the light of the innkeeper candle how it fared with his lady love, quitting Don Quixote, ran to bring her the help she needed, and the innkeeper did the same, but with a different intention, for his was to chastise the lass, as he believed that beyond a doubt she alone was the cause of all the harmony. And so, as the saying is, cat to rat, rat to rope, rope to stick, the carrier pounded Sancho, Sancho the lass, she him, and the innkeeper her, and all worked away so briskly that they did not give themselves a moment's rest, and the best of it was that the innkeeper's lamp went out, and as they were left in the dark, they all laid upon one another, the other in a mass so unmercifully that there was not a sound spot left where a hand could light. It so happened that there was lodging that night in the inn Quadrilio, Three Stooges, of what they call the old holy brotherhood of Toledo, who, also hearing the extraordinary noise of the conflict, seized his staff and the tin case with his warrants, and made his way in the dark into the room, crying, "Hold! In the name of Justician! Hold! In the name of the Holy Brotherhood! The Popo! Run!" The first that he came upon was the pummeled Don Quixote, who lay stretched senseless on his back upon his broken bed, and his hand falling on the bed as he felt about, he continued to cry, "Help for the jurisdiction!" But perceiving that he whom he had laid hold of did not move or stir, he concluded that he was dead. Well, 13% of the way in, and Don Quixote is dead. Short book. But perceiving that it was dead, and that those in the room were his murderers, and with his suspicion raised his voice still higher, calling, "Shut the inn gate! See that no one goes out. They have killed a man here. His cry startled them all, and each dropped the contest at the point at which his voice reached. The innkeeper retreated to his room, the carrier back to his pack saddles, the lass to her crib. The unlucky Don Quixote and Sancho alone were unable to move from where they were. The quadrille. They did kill him off so early. Is this gonna be? Are we gonna have a protagonist swap? Quadrillo on this let go Don Quixote's beard and went to look for light to search for an apprehended culprit. But not finding one, as the innkeeper had purposely extinguished the lantern on retreating to his room, he was compelled to have recourse to the hearth, where, after much time and trouble, he lit another lamp. What are these pictures? I can't even tell you what some of these pictures are referring to, I will not lie. Chapter 17, in which are contained the innumerable troubles which the brave Don Quixote and his good squire Sancho Panza endured in the inn, which, to his misfortune, he took to be a castle. Calling Sean Beaton's agent right now for Don Quixote adaptation. Yeah! By this time, Don Quixote had recovered from his swoon, and in the same tone of voice in which he had called to his squire the day before, when he lay stretched in the vale of the Stakes, he began calling to him, "Sancho, my friend, art thou asleep? Sleepest thou, friend Sancho? 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 How can I sleep? Curses on it," returned Sancho discontentedly and bitterly, "when it is plain that all the devils have been at me this night." "Thou mayest well believe that," answered Don Quixote, "because either I know little or this castle is enchanted. For thou must know, but this that I am now about to tell thee must swear to keep secret until after my death." "I swear it." "I say so," continued Don Quixote, "because I hate taking away anyone's good name." "I say," replied Sancho, "that I swear to hold my tongue about it to the end of your worship's days, and God grant I may be able to let it out tomorrow." What? "I swear to hold my tongue to the end of your worship's days, and God grant I may be able to let it out tomorrow. I swear to hold it in secret until you die, Don Quixote. Hopefully that's tomorrow." Sancho, you get sassy. Do I do thee such injuries, Sancho?" That is absolutely diabolical. It's fucking wonderful. "That thou wast see me dead so soon?" It is not for that," replied Sancho, "but because I hate keeping things long, and I don't want them to grow rotten with me from overkeeping." "At any rate," said Don Quixote, "I have more confidence in thy affection and good nature, and so I would have thee know that this night there befell me one of the strangest adventures I could describe. And to relate it to thee briefly, thou must know that a little while ago the daughter of the lord of the castle came to me, and she is the most elegant and beautiful damsel that could be found in the wide world. What I could tell thee of the charms of her person, or her lively wit, or other secret manners, which, to preserve the fealty I owe to my lady Dulcinea del Toboso, I shall pass over unnoticed and in silence. I will only tell thee that, either fate being envious of so great a boon placed in my hands by good fortune, or perhaps, and this is more probable, this castle being, as I have already said, enchanted, at the time when I was engaged in the sweetest, most amorous discourse with her, there came, without my seeing or knowing whence it came, a hand attached to some arm of some huge giant, that planted such a cuff on my jaws that I have them all bathed in blood, and then pummeled me in such a way that I am in a worse plight than yesterday, when the carriers, on the account of Rocinante's misbehaviour, inflicted on us the injury thou knowest of. Whence conjecture that there may be some enchanted Moor guarding the treasure of this damsel's beauty, and that it is not for me. Not for me either. Isekai series where a modern man is reincarnated as Sancho Panza and has to deal with Don Quixote. Oh lordy. That would be so bad. It's such a fun story. Not for me either, said Sancho. For more than 400 Moors have so thrashed me that the drubbing of the stakes was cakes and fancy bread to it. But tell me, senor, what do you call this excellent and rare adventure that has left us as we are left now? Though your worship was not so badly off, having in your arms that incomparable beauty you spoke of, but what did I have? Except the heaviest wax I think I've had all in my life. Luckily me and the mother that bore me, for I am not a knight errant and never expect to be one, and all of the mishaps, the greater part, falls to my share. Then thou hast been thrashed too, said Don Quixote. Didn't I say so? Worse luck to my line. Do not be distressed, friend, said Don Quixote, for I will now make the precious balsam which we shall cure ourselves in the twinkling of an eye. By this time, the Curradello had succeeded in lighting the lamp, and came to see the man that he thought had been killed, and as Sancho caught sight of him in the door, seeing him coming from his shirt and the cloth on his head, and lamp in his hand, and a very foreboding countenance, he said to his master, Senor, can it be this is the enchanted Moor coming back to give us more castigation, if there be anything still left in the ink bowl? Oh, it's gotta be I can make him worse. No, it's I can fix him, but in that I can actually make him a knight errant. You get isekai'd into the Book of Don Quixote, but you have to make Don Quixote an actually good knight. You have to get Don Quixote to actually succeed. Not just think he succeeds, actually succeed. By this time, the Caldero... Oh, I said that. It cannot be the Moor, answered Don Quixote, for those under enchantment do not let themselves be seen by anyone. If they don't let themselves be seen, they let themselves be felt, said Sancho. If not, let my shoulders speak to the point. Go for the hard mode achievement. If they don't... Yeah. Mine could speak too, said Don Quixote. But that is not a sufficient reason for believing that what we see is the enchanted Moor. The officer came up, and finding them engaged in such a peaceful conversation, stood amazed. Though Don Quixote, to be sure, still lay on his back, unable to move from pure pummelling from plasters, the officer turned to him and said, Well, how goes it, good man? would speak more politely if I were you, replied Don Quixote. It is the way of this country to address knight-errant in that style, you booby. Booby. The quadrello, finding himself so disrespectfully treated by such a sorry-looking individual, lost his temper, raising the lamp full of oil, smote Don Quixote such a blow that with it on... I mean, he's definitely a policeman, isn't he? One little bit of disrespect and suddenly he's going to blows. Never change, police force. Never change. Terrible, 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 terrible. Such a blow with it that the head that he gave him a badly broken plate. Then, all being in darkness, he went out, and Sancho Panza said, "That's certainly the enchanted Moor, signor, and he keeps the treasure for others, and for us only cuffs and lamp wax." Medieval IPD, correct. "That is the truth," replied Don Quixote, "and there is no use in troubling oneself about these matters of enchantment or being angry or vexed at them. For, as they are invisible and visionary, we shall find no one on whom to avenge ourselves. Do what we may. Rise, Sancho, if thou canst, and call the accolade of this fortress, and get him to give me a little oil, wine, salt, and rosemary to make the sulphurous salutiferous balm, for indeed I believe I have great need of it now, because I am losing much blood from the wound that phantom gave me." Sancho, I'm dying! Okay. I see why they made Don Quixote a vampire. It's the only way he would have survived all this nonsense. In Limbus, for the record, I don't know if Don Quixote is a vampire in the book. Who the fuck is? Sancho got up with pain enough in his bones and went after the innkeeper in the dark, and meeting the officer who was looking to see what had become of his enemy, he said to him, "Senor, whoever you are, do us a favour and kindness, and do the fate could give us a little rosemary, oil, salt, and wine, for it is wanted to cure one of the best knight-errants on earth, who lies on yonder bed by the hands of the enchanted Moor that's in this inn." When the officer heard him talk in this way, he took him for a man out of his senses, and as day was now beginning to break, he opened the inn gate, and calling the host, he told him what this good man wanted. The host furnished him with what he required, and Sancho brought it to Don Quixote, who, with his hand to his head, was bewailing the pain of the blow of the lamp, which had done him no more harm than raising a couple of rather large lumps. And what he fancied blood was only the sweat that flowed from him in his sufferings during the late storm. To be brief, he took the materials of which he made a compound, mixing them all and boiling them a good while until it seemed to him they had come to perfection. He then asked for some vial to pour it into, and as there was not one in the inn, he decided on putting it into a tin oil bottle or flask, of which the host made him a free gift. And over the flask he repeated more than 80 paternosters, and as many more Ave Marias, salves and credos, accompanying each word with the cross by way of benediction. At all which there were present Sancho, the innkeeper, and the caldero, for the carrier was now peacefully engaged in attending to the comfort of his mules. This being accomplished, he felt anxious to make trial himself on the spot of the virtue of his precious balsam, as he considered it, and so he drank near a quart of what could not be put into the flask, and remained in the pigskin in which it had been boiled. But scarcely had he done drinking it, when he began to vomit in such a way that nothing was left in his stomach. And with the pangs and spasms of vomit, he broke into a profuse sweat, on account of which he bade them cover him, and leave him alone. They did so, and he lay sleeping more than 3 hours, at the end of which he awoke and felt very great bodily relief, and so much ease from his bruises that he thought to himself quite cured, and verily believed that he had hit upon the balsam of Phoebus, and that with this remedy he might thenceforth, without any fear, face any kind of destruction, battle, or combat, however perilous it may be. I think he just had a good nap and a chill, and the bruises went down. To be fair, he probably sweated out any kind of infection he was going to get, which is actually pretty good. Sancho Panza, who also regarded the amendment of his master as miraculous, begged him to give him what was left in the pigskin, which was no small quantity. Don Quixote consented, and he, taking it with both hands in good faith, and with a better will, gulped down and drained off very little less than his master. But the fact is that the stomach of poor Sancho was, of necessity, not so delicate as that of his master, and so, before vomiting, he was seized with such gripings and retchings, and such sweats and faintness, that verily and truly he believed his last hour had come, and finding himself so racked and tormented, he cursed the balsam, and the thief that had given it to him. Don Quixote, seeing him in this sad state, "It is my belief, Sancho, that this mischief comes of thy not being dubbed a knight. For I am persuaded this liquor cannot be good for those who are not so." "If your worship knew that," returned Sancho, "woe betide me and all my kindred. Why'd you let me taste it?" At this moment the draught took effect, and the poor squire began to discharge both ways at such a rate that the rush mat on which he had thrown himself, and the canvas blanket he had covering him, were fit for nothing afterwards. He sweated and perspired with such paroxysms and convulsions that not only he himself, but all present, thought his end come. This tempest and tribulation lasted about 2 hours, at the end of which he was left, not like his master, but so weak and exhausted that he could not stand. Don Quixote, however, who, as has been said, felt himself relieved and well, was eager to take his departure at once in quest of adventures, as it seemed to him that all the time he loitered there was a fraud upon the world, and those in it who stood in need of his help and protection, and all the more when he had the security and confidence of his balsam afforded him, and so, urged by his impulse, he saddled Rocinante himself, and put the pack-saddle on his squire's beast, whom likewise he helped to dress and mount the ass. After which he mounted his horse, turning a corner of the inn, he laid hold a pike that stood there, to serve him by way of lance. All that were in the inn, who were more than 20 persons, stood watching him. The innkeeper's daughter was likewise observing him, and he, too, never took his eyes off her. From time to time fetched a sigh that he seemed to pluck up from the depths of his bowels, but they all thought it must be from pain he felt in his ribs. At any rate, they who had seen him plastered the night before thought so. As soon as they were both mounted at the gate of the inn, he called to the host and said in a very grave and measured voice, "Many and great are the favours of Senor Alisade, and I have received in this castle of yours, and I remain under the deepest obligation to be grateful to you for them all the days of my life. If I can repay them in avenging you of any arrogant foe who may have wronged you, know that my calling is no other than to aid the weak, to avenge those who have suffered wrong, and to chastise perfidy. Search your memory, and if you find anything of this kind, you need only tell me of it, and I promise you, by the order of knighthood which I have received, to procure you satisfaction and reparation to the utmost of your desire." There is so much ass manning in this book. Absolutely. I mean, this is like a carry-on from the smiting and thrusting of knightliness, so it makes sense that there's some ass mounting as well. The innkeeper replied to him in equal calmness, "Sir Knight, I do not want your worship to avenge me of any wrong, because when any is done, me and I can take what vengeance seems good to me. The only thing I want is that you pay me the score that you have run up in the inn last night, as well as for the straw and barley for your 2 beasts, as for supper and beds." "Then this is an inn," replied Don Quixote. "And a very respectable one," said the innkeeper. "I have been under a mistake all this time," replied Don Quixote, "for, in truth, I thought this was a castle, and not a bad one, but since it appears that this is not a castle but an inn, all that can be done now is that you should excuse the payment, for I cannot contravene the rules of knight-errants, of whom I know as fact, as up to the present I have read nothing to the contrary, that they never paid for lodgings or anything else in the inn where they might be, for any hospitality that might be offered to them is their due by law and right in return for the insufferable toil they endure in seeking adventures by night and by day, in summer and in winter, on foot and on horseback, in hunger and in thirst, cold and heat, exposed to all the inclemencies of heaven and all hardship of earth. You may now kiss the knighthood." "Sir, please just pay your tab. I have been under the mistake this whole time," summarizes the book very well. Yes, I do. Such a strong "sir," this is a Wendy's energy. Yeah. "I have little to do with that," replied the innkeeper. "Pay me what you owe me, and just let us have no more talk of chivalry, for all I care about is to get my money." "You are a stupid, scurvy innkeeper." said Don Quixote, and putting spurs to Rocinante, and bringing his pike on the slope, he rode out of the inn before anyone could stop him, and pushed on some distance without looking to see if his squire was following him. The innkeeper, when he saw him go without paying, ran to get payment of Sancho, who said that his master would not pay neither, would he, because, being as he was squire of a knight-errant, the same rule and reason held for him. As for his master, with regard to not paying anything in the inns and hostelries, at this the innkeeper waxed very wroth, and threatened, if he did not pay, to compel him in a way that he would not like. To which Sancho made answer that by law of chivalry his master had received, he would not pay a rap, without it cost him his life, for the excellent and ancient usage of knight-errant was not going to be violated by him, nor should the squire of such as were yet to come into the world would ever complain of him or reproach him with breaking so just a privilege. Sancho's a good talker. Well, no, he's not. He's a terrible talker, but he comes up with some good stuff. It's like, well, me master ain't paying, and if I pay, then I am the one who breaks the chivalry laws, and I can't be breaking the chivalry laws. I mean, that's just against the laws, and then I'd be paying a death and all that, so, bye. The ill luck of the unfortunate Sancho so ordered that among the company in the inn there were 4 wooden wall carders from Segovia, 3 needle makers from Cordova, and 2 lodgers from the fair of Seville. Lively fellows, tender-hearted, fond of a joke, and playful, who, almost as if instigated and moved by a common impulse, made up to Sancho and dismounted him from his ass, while one of them went in for the blanket of the host's bed, put him on, flinging him into it. They looked up, and seeing that the ceiling was somewhat lower than they required for their work, they decided upon going out to the yard, which is bounded by the sky, and there, putting Sancho in the middle of the blanket, they began to raise him high, making sport with him as they would a dog. At Shrovetide. So this is where this picture finally comes in. The picture cover for last chapter is what happened in this chapter. It's a flying Sancho! Sancho's flying type, did you know? The cries of the poor blanketed wretch were so loud that they reached the ears of his master, who, halting to listen attentively, was persuaded that some new adventure was coming, until he clearly perceived that it was his squire who uttered them. Wheeling about, he came up to the inn with a laborious gallop. Sorry, I had like a cramp for a minute then. Old Lady Briony's body hurts. Old Lady Briony's body hurts. It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. You're fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. My friend bought me a fine apple. It was a crocheted pineapple and it has a little sign on it saying, "I'm a fine apple. I'm fine. You're fine. Everything's fine." And it was great because I say that so much. Wheeling about, he came up to the inn with a laborious gallop, and finding it shut, went round it to see if he could find some way of getting in. But as soon as he came to the wall of the yard, which was not very high, he discovered the game that was being played with his squire. He saw him rising and falling in the air with such grace and nimbleness that, had his rage allowed him, it is my belief that he would have laughed. He tried to climb from his horse over the top of the wall, but he was so bruised and battered that he could not even dismount. And from the back of his horse he began to utter such maledictions and objurgations against those who were blanketing Sancho, as it would be impossible to write down accurately. They, however, did not stay their laughter or their work for this, nor did the flying Sancho cease his lamentations, mingled now with threats, now with entreaties, but all to little purpose, or none at all, until, from pure weariness, they left off. They then brought him his ass, and, mounting him on top of it, they put his jacket round him, and the compassionate Maritornes, seeing him so exhausted, thought fit to refresh him with a jug of water. That's this picture. We're getting there. I'm finally starting to understand these things. Speaking of which, I'm going to refresh myself with a bottle of water. And that it might be all the cooler, she fetched it from the well. Sancho took it, and as he was raising it to his mouth, he was stopped by the cries of his master, exclaiming, "Sancho, my son! Drink not the water! Drink it not, my son, for it will kill thee! See, here I have the blessed balsam!" And he held up the flask of liquor, and with drinking 2 drops of it, thou wilt certainly be restored. At these words, Sancho turned his eyes asquint, and in still louder voice said, "Can it be your worship has forgotten that I'm not a knight, nor do you want me to end my vomiting up my bowels? I have left after last night. Keep your liquor in the name of all the devils and leave me to myself." And at one the same instant he left off talking and began drinking. But as at the first sup he perceived it was water, he did not care to go on with it, and begged Maritornes to fetch him some wine, which she did with good will, and paid for it with her own money. For indeed they say of her that though she was in that line of life, there was some faint and distant resemblance to a Christian about her. Well, even though she was a prostitute, I guess she was still a nice person. Even though we've literally never seen a bad thing about her except for the fact that she's a prostitute. But you know, she can't be good unless she's Christian. That's the rules. That's the rules of back here. When Sancho had done drinking, he dug his heels into his ass. And the gate of the inn being thrown open, he passed out very well pleased at having paid nothing and carried his point through it, though at the expense of his usual certes. His shoulders. It is true that the innkeeper detained his alforjas in payment of what was owing to him, but Sancho took his departure in a flurry that he never missed them. The innkeeper, as soon as he saw him off, wanted to bar the gate close, but the blanketeers would not agree to it, for they were fellows who could not have cared 2 farthings for Don Quixote, even had he been really one of the knight-errant of the Round Table. Way up to... Yeah, we can get a bit more in. Chapter 18, in which is related the discourse Sancho Panza held with his master Don Quixote, and other adventures worth relating. in which Sancho's done with his shit. I hope so. Poor Sancho. But it is kind of fueled by greed. I think that's the whole thing, is we can feel sorry for Sancho, but Sancho's doing this because he wanted to, like, very quickly be king of an island. And was idiot enough to believe that, too. So he kind of brings it on himself. Sancho reached his master so limp and faint that he could not urge his beast, when Don Quixote saw the state he was in, said, "I have now come to the conclusion, good Sancho, that this castle or inn is beyond a doubt enchanted, because those who have so atrociously diverted themselves with thee, what can they be put phantoms or beings of another world? And I hold this confirmed by having noticed that when I was by the wall of the yard witnessing the acts of thy sad tragedy, it was out of my power to mount upon it, nor could I even dismount from Rocinante, because they, no doubt, had me enchanted. For I swear to thee by the faith of what I am, if I had been able to climb up or dismount, I would have avenged thee in such a way that those braggart thieves would have remembered their freak for ever, even though, in doing so, I knew that I contravened the laws of chivalry, which, as I have often told thee, do not permit a knight to lay hands on him who is not one, save in case of urgent and great necessity in defence of his own life and person." Don trips over Barnaby. "Foul enchantment, correct." I would have avenged myself too, if I could," said Sancho, "whether I had been dubbed a knight or not. But I could not, though, for my part, I am persuaded those who amused themselves with me were not phantoms nor enchanted men, as your worship says, but men of flesh and bone like ourselves, and they all had their names, for I heard them name them whenever they were tossing me, and one was called Pedro Martinez, another was called Tenorio Hernandez, and the innkeeper I heard was called Juan Paloque. The left-handed. I have to like turn off the accent I'm giving to Sancho in order to actually do any kind of Spanish pronunciation. So that, senor, you're not being able to leap over the wall or the yard or dismount from your oars came from something else besides enchantments. And what I make out clearly from all this, that these adventures we go seeking will, in the end, lead us to such misadventures that we shall not know which is our right foot, and that the best and wisest thing, according to my small wits, will be us for to return home, now that it is harvest time, and attend to our business, and give over wandering from Zecca to Mecca, and from pail to bucket, as the saying is. "How little thou knowest about chivalry, Sancho," replied Don Quixote. "Hold thy peace, and have patience. The day will come when thou shalt see with thine own eyes what an honourable thing it is to wander in pursuit of thy calling. Nay, tell me, what greater pleasure can there be in the world? Or what delight can equal that of winning a battle and triumphing over one's enemy? None, beyond all doubt." "Very likely," answered Sancho, "though I do not know it. All I know is that since we have been knight-errant, or since your worship has been one, for I have no right to reckon myself one of so honourable a number, we have never won any battle except the one with the Biscayan. And even out of that your worship came with half an ear, and half a helmet the less, and from that till now it has been all cudgellings and more cudgellings, cough and more cough. I'm getting the blanking in over and above, and falling in with enchanted persons on whom I cannot avenge myself, so as to know what the delight, as your worship calls it, of conquering an enemy is like. That is what vexes me. And what ought to vex thee, Sancho? Replied Don Quixote. But henceforth I will endeavour to have at hand some sword made by such craft that no kind of enchantments can take effect upon him who carries it. And it is even possible that fortune may procure for me that which belonged to Amadeus, when he was called the Knight of the Burning Sword, which was one of the best swords that ever knight in the world possessed, for besides having the said virtue, it cut like a razor, and there was no armour, however strong and enchanted it might be, that could resist it. Such is my luck, said Sancho, that even if that happened, and your worship found some such sword, it would, like the balsam, turn out serviceable and good for dubbed knights only, and as for the squires, they might sup sorrow. Fear that not that, Sancho, replied Don Quixote. Heaven will deal better by thee. Thus talking, Don Quixote and his squire were going along when, on the road they were following, Don Quixote perceived approaching them a large and thick cloud of dust, on seeing which he turned to Sancho and said, This is the day, Sancho, on which will be seen the boon my fortune is deserving of me. This, I say, is the day on which, as much as on any other, shall be displayed the might of my arm, and on which I shall do deeds that shall remain written in the books of fame for all ages to come. Seest thou that cloud of dust which rises yonder? Well, then all that is churned up by a vast army composed of various and countless nations that come marching there. According to that, there must be two, said Sancho, for on this opposite side there also rises another cloud of dust. Don Quixote turned to look, and found that it was true, and rejoicing exceedingly, he concluded that there were two armies about to engage and encounter in the midst of that broad plain, for at all times and seasons his fancy was full of battles, enchantments, adventures, crazy feats, loves, and defiances, that all recorded in the books of chivalry, and everything he said, thought, or did had reference to such things. Now the cloud of dust he had seen was raised by two great droves of sheep coming along the same road in the opposite directions, which, because of the dust, did not become visible until they drew near. But Don Quixote asserted so positively that they were armies that Sancho was led to believe it and say, Well, what are we to do, senor? The armies of sheep! The sheep nations are at war! What, said Don Quixote, give aid and assist to the weak, and those who need it. And thou must know, Sancho, that this which comes opposite to us is conducted and led by the mighty Emperor of Alifanforn, Lord of the great Isle of Trapabana. This other that marches behind me is that of his enemy, the great King Garamantas, Pentapolin of the bare arm, for he always goes into battle with his right arm bare. But why are these two lords such enemies? They are at enmity, replied Don Quixote, because this Alifanforn is a furious pagan, and is in love with the daughter of Pentapolin, who is a very beautiful and moreover gracious lady and a Christian, and her father is unwilling to bestow her upon the pagan king unless he first abandons the religion of his false prophet Baphomet and adopts his own. He absolutely exercises his right to bear arms. I also this reeks of like a DM coming up with something out of his ass. By me beard, said Sancho, but Pentapalin does quite right, and I will help him as much as I can. In that thou wilt do is thy duty, Sancho, said Don Quixote, for to engage in battles of this sort is not requisite to be dubbed knight. That I can well understand, answered Sancho, but where shall we put this ass? Where we may be sure to find him after the fray is over, for I believe it has not been the custom so far to go into battle with a beast of this kind. That is true, said Don Quixote, and what you had best to do with him is to leave him to take his chance, whether he be lost or not. For the horses we shall have when we come out victors will be so many that even Rocinante will run a risk of being changed for another. But attend to me and observe, for I wish to give thee some account of the chief knights who accompany these two armies, and that thou mayest the better see and mark, let us withdraw to that hillock which rises yonder, whence both armies may be seen. They did so, and placed themselves on a rising ground, from which the two droves that Don Quixote made armies of might have been plainly seen, if the clouds of dust they raised had not obscured them and blinded the sight. Nevertheless, seen in his imagination what he did not see, and what did not exist, he began thus, in a loud voice. O Lord. This is a really, look at that wall of text. This is a high-level book, and I'm feeling it. But we continue. I might not feel high enough level reader for this book, but we do it anyway, because that's how we level up reading. The knight whom thou seest yonder in yellow armour, who bears upon his shield a lion crowned, crouching at the feet of a damsel, is the valiant Lorcalco of the Silver Bridge, and that one in armour with flowers of gold, who bears on his shield 3 crowns argent on an azure field, is the dreaded Micocolembo, Grand Duke of Kirosia. That other of a gigantic frame on his right hand is the ever dauntless Brandabarban de Bolici, Lord of the 3 Arabias, who from armour wears that serpent skin, and has for shield a gate which, according to tradition, is one of those of the temple that Samson brought to the ground, when by his death he revenged himself upon his enemies. But turn thine eyes to the other side, and thou shalt see in front, in the van of his other army, in the victorious and never vanquished Timonel de Carcajona, Prince of New Biscay, who comes in armour which arms quartered azure, vert, white, and yellow, and bears on his shield a cat, or on a field tawny, with a motto which says meow, meow, which is the beginning of the name of his lady, who, according to report, is the peerless Miaulina, daughter of Duke Alfiniquin. of the Algarve. The other who burdens and presses the loins of that powerful charger, and bears arms white as snow and a shield blank, and without any device, is a novice knight, a Frenchman by birth, Piers Papin by name, lord of the Baroness of Utrecht. That other, with the iron shod heels, strikes the flank of that nimble party-coloured zebra, and for arms bears azure fair, is the mighty Duke of Nabia. Filardo del Bosque, who bears for device on his shield an asparagus plant with a motto in Castilian that says, Rastrea mi suerte. And so he went on naming a number of knights, one's squadron, or the other out of his imagination, and to all he assigned offhand their arms, colours, devices, mottos, carried away by the illusion of this unheard of craze, and without pause he continued, people of devisers, nations, compose this squadron in front, and here are those that drink the sweetest waters from the famous Xanthus, those that scour the woodsy Massilian plains, those that sift the pure gold of Arabian Felix, those that enjoy the famed cool banks of the crystal Thermodon, those that in many and various ways divert the streams of the golden Ptolecus, the Numidians faithless in their promises, the Persians renowned in archery, the Parthians and the Medias that fight as they fly, the Arabs that ever shift their dwellings, the Scythicians as cruel as they are fair, the Ethiopians with pierced lips, and infinity of other nations, those features I recognize and descry, though I cannot recall their names. In this other squadron there come those that drink the crystal streams of the olive-bearing Betis, those that make smooth their countenances with the water of the ever-rich and golden Tangus, those that rejoice in the fertilizing flow of the divine Genil, those that roam the Tusterian plains abound in pasture, those that take their pleasure in the Elysian meadows of Jerez, the rich Machigans crowned with ruddy ears of corn, the wearers of iron, old relics of the Gothic race, those that bathe in the Pisuerga, renowned for its gentle current, those that feed their herds along the spreading pastures of the winding Gardania. I wanted to say Gridania, like Final Fantasy XIV for a hot minute there. Famed for its hidden course, those that tremble with the cold of the pine-clad Pyrenees, or the dazzling snow of the lofty Alpine, but there's no L. In a word, as many as all Europe includes and contains. Absolutely, Don Quixote, like this whole bit just convinces me that Don Quixote should have been a DM. DM, what's this character's name? That's his favourite question. Every DM's feared question is Don Quixote's favourite question because he comes up with all this shit. Ooh, and I think, I know it hurts to think, but I do think that is all we have for today. And we will find out the result of this godforsaken war of the sheep next week. But for now, thank you so much for coming! Thank you everyone in chat. Thank you anyone who left. Thank you anyone who watched the VOD. I really appreciate you coming and hope you enjoyed, no matter which way you decided to enjoy. If you have not already, I'd highly appreciate if you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube. And if you are not on YouTube, and you're on Twitch, give it a follow there. If you've done all that, join Discord. Discord's great. If you've done that, buy my audiobook. Go to Audible. If you like listening to me, go to Audible. Go in your search bar and search Briony Smith, and you'll come up with 2 audiobooks. They're both wonderful. They're both by me. I didn't write the book. I just spoke it. I'm working on the 3rd one at the moment. So think. No, don't do it, Brady. Nothing ever good comes from thinking. I know, right? Hello, Benjamin. Just in time to insult my intelligence. Hi, Jake. Yes, it was good reading books. I'm so warm. I'm gonna go, like, I don't know, pour some water on my head or some shit. I hope you guys do your best surviving the heat. I hope to see you tomorrow. Try to survive that long. I'll do my best as well. And we'll reconvene with some one shot. But until then, I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Briony Smith, live in the Library. Goodbye. Tracking your shit. Goodbye.